YouTube, let's do one more video for the day. I wanted to cover this in my last video, but it was just running on too long. I'm going to read to you a chapter from. Everyone needs to read this book and study this guy. His name's Edward Bernays. He was a psychologist. He was known as like one of the pioneering psychologists of public opinion. He wrote a book called Crystallizing Public Opinion. The Jesuits are all about dumbing down uh, the minds of the public so they can continue to do their casuistry and their sophistry behind the scenes and continue to stay in control of the current power structure of the world. Okay, but I'm going to show you Edward Bernays in the book. Here, I'm just going to show you quickly, and I covered this in my last video at the very end. But this is a book. Everybody Ought to Be Rich. It's a biographical of Knight of Malta, John J. Raska. Okay, just proof here, just showing you that Bernays was part of the Jesuit. Like he was a tool of the Jesuits in a sense. Okay, he was working for them. Okay, you see here, Raska created the Liberty League, which was a co-opted opposition group to Knight of Malta, or to President Roosevelt. Raska was right before he became the head of the Liberty League. Liberty League was the head of the DNC in America from 1928 to 1932. Just like the current head of the DNC right now, Tom Perez was Jesuit educated at Canisius College. Okay, but let me get the guy's name here. Raska's replacement for the DNC after him was an Irish Roman Catholic. Let me get the guy's name here. His name was Jim Farley. Okay, I'll pull up a picture of him at the end of this video. But so Knight of Malta, John J. Raska was the head of the DNC. Roosevelt gets elected, and then Knight of Malta. What was the guy's name here? Jim Farley. Knight of Malta, Jim Farley. After Knight of Malta, John J. Raska succeeds as the head of the DNC. And right here, Bernays. I don't know if you can see it. Raska was hired by Edward Bernays. Okay, and I'm going to read to you just the first chapter of Edward Bernays' book Propaganda, because it is very out in the open. Okay, he's completely just spilling the beans of what the Jesuit agenda is. Edward Bernays, you see here, is an American pioneer in the field of public relations and propaganda. See, he is the nephew of Sigmund Freud. So you see here, Sigmund Freud is absolutely, I have to do more research on him, but he was absolutely connected to the control system. You see Edward Bernays published a book here, I'm going to read to you, Propaganda and Crystallizing Public Opinion. Bernays his best known campaigns included a 1929 effort to promote female smoking by branding cigarettes as feminine torches of freedom. Cigarettes were torches of freedom. So this guy this is a social engineer. Okay, he's working for the Jesuits. And his work with the United Fruit Company, which was connected with the CIA, orchestrated overthrow of the democratically elected Guatemalan government in 1954. Bernays also worked for dozens of major American corporations, including P&G and General Electric, and for government agencies, politicians, and non-profit organizations. I just read to you Edward Bernays worked for Knight of Malta, John J. Raska, as well. Okay. You see here, nephew of Sigmund Freud. Okay, he organized publications of Freud's introductory lectures. Okay. Bernays worked for tobacco companies Liggett and Myers, makers of Chesterfield cigarettes, in 1927. He pulled a stunt against the competing brand Lucky Strike, in which involved mocking the endorsements of opera singers who said Lucky Strikes were kind to your voice. He started working for the American Tobacco Company. I'm just going to scroll down. You see like the propaganda he was involved with these torches of freedom. Okay. With the Greenbelt, modus operandi, United Fruit, Guatemala. Okay, I'm just going to scroll down. I don't want this video to go on too long. If you're just watching this, pause and read it. Bernays is involved with the control system. Absolutely. The CIA was created by a Knight of Malta, William Donovan, who is also William Donovan in the book Everybody Ought to Be Rich, biographical on John J. Raska, Knight of Malta. Knight of Malta, William Donovan was in connection with Raska while he was still a lawyer. Or Attorney General, I believe. Okay. Following the coup, Bernays built up the image of Guatemala's new president, Carlos Castillo Armas. Yeah, giving advice for his public appearances both in Guatemala and the U.S. In 1956, Bernays produced a pamphlet comparing the communist way and the Christian way. And if you watch my last video on the Jesuit doctrine, you'll see that it's quite evident that Jesuitism is communism. I didn't even mention in that video, I did a separate video on this, but Karl Marx was educated for 5 years by Jesuits. Okay. You see here, Bernays argued that the covert use of third parties was morally legitimate. We're continuing here. I'm going to skip. So this is everyone should download this book. I'm going to link it in the show notes. Propaganda by Edward Bernays, 1928. Okay, I'm just going to read the first chapter here, Organizing Chaos. Okay. You see here, the conscious and intelligent manipulation of organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. And guys, when you're listening to this is Jesuit doctrine, absolute. Okay? Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country. We are governed, our minds are molded, our tastes formed, our ideas suggested largely by men we have never heard of. This is a logical result of the way in which our democratic society is organized. A vast number of human beings must cooperate in this manner if they are to live together in some smoothly functioning society. Our invisible governors are in many cases unaware of the identity of their fellow members in their inner cabinet. They govern us by the qualities of natural leadership, their ability to supply needed ideas, and by their key position in the social structure. Whatever attitude one chooses to take towards this condition, it remains a fact that in almost every act of our daily lives, whether in the sphere of politics or business, in our social conduct or in our ethical thinking, we are dominated by the relatively small number of persons, a trifling fraction of over 120 million, who understand the mental processes and social patterns of the masses. It is they who pull the wires which control the public mind, who harness old social forces and contrive new ways to bind and guide the world. This is the Vatican power structure. Continuing. It is not usually realized how necessary these invisible governors are to the orderly functioning of our group life. In theory, every citizen may vote for whom he pleases. Our Constitution does not envisage political parties as part of the mechanism of government, and its framers seem to not have pictured to themselves the existence in our national politics of anything like the modern political machine. But the American voters soon found that without organization and direction, their individual votes cast perhaps for dozens or hundreds of candidates would produce nothing but confusion. Invisible government in the shape of rudimentary political parties arose almost overnight. Ever since then, we have agreed for the sake of simplicity and practicality that party machines should narrow down the field of choice of to two candidates or at most 3 or 4. In theory, every citizen makes up his mind on public questions and matters of private conduct. In practice, if all men had to study for themselves the abstruse economic, political, and ethical data involved, in every question they would find it impossible to come to a conclusion about anything. We have voluntarily agreed to let an invisible... I'm going to highlight this. Okay? We have voluntarily agreed to let an invisible government sift the data and high spot of the outstanding issues so that our field of choice shall be narrowed to practical proportions. From our leaders in the media they use to reach the public, we accept the evidence in the demarcation of issues bearing upon the public questions. From some ethical teacher, be it a minister, a favorite essayist, or merely the prevailing opinion. We accept a standardized code of social conduct to which we conform most of the time. In theory, everybody buys the best and cheapest commodities offered to them on the market. In practice, if everyone went around pricing and chemically testing before purchasing the dozens of soaps or fabrics or brands which are for sale, economic life would become hopelessly jammed. To avoid such confusion, society consents to have its choice narrowed to ideas and objects brought to its attention through propaganda of all kinds. There is consequently a vast and continuous effort going on to capture our minds in the interest of some policy or commodity or idea. It might be better to have, instead of propaganda, a special pleading committees of wise men who would choose our rulers, dictate our conduct, private and public, and decide upon the best types of clothes for us to wear and the best types of foods for us to eat. Okay, this is the Jesuit order. But we have chosen the opposite method, that of open competition. And again, so So he's saying here that how this is instead of the Dark Ages, the Jesuit tyranny has molded into a form of scientific dictatorship. Okay, read actually before I keep going with this is a good quote here. This is the type of society we are in now because the Jesuits are trying to make the slaves comfortable. Okay, so they'll never dream of rebellion. Okay. There will be in the next generation or so a pharmacological method of making people love their servitude and producing a dictatorship without tears, so to speak, producing a kind of painless concentration camp for entire societies, so that people will in fact have their liberties taken away from them but will rather enjoy it because they will be directed from any desire to rebel by propaganda or brainwashing enhanced by pharmacological methods. And this seems to be the final revolution. Aldous Huxley, spoken in March 20th, 1962, in his essay "The Marketing of Madness: The Truth About Psychotic Drugs." Okay, so it gets all out there. Okay, they're putting this in plain sight. Okay, to achieve this, society has consented to permit free competition to be organized by leadership and propaganda. Some of the phenomena of this process are criticized: the manipulation of news, the Jesuits controlled the news. Okay, the inflation of personality, and the general ballyhoo of which politicians and commercial products and social ideas are brought to the consciousness of the masses. Instruments by which public opinion is organized and focused may be misused, but such organization and focusing are necessary to orderly life. Civilization has become more complex, and as the need for invisible government has been increasingly demonstrated, the technical means have been invented and deployed by which opinion may be regimented. The printing press and the newspaper, the railroad and the telephone, the telegraph, radio, and airplanes, ideas can be spread rapidly and even instantaneously all over America. H. G. Wells senses the potentialities of these inventions when he writes in the New York Times, quote, "Modern means of communication, the power afforded by print, telephone, wireless, and so forth, of rapidly putting through directive, strategic, or technical conceptions to a great number of cooperating centers, of getting quick replies and effective discussion, have opened up a new world of political processes. Ideas and phrases can now be given to an effectiveness greater than the effectiveness of any personality and stronger than any sectional interest. The common design can be documented and sustained against perversion and betrayal. It can be elaborated and developed steadily and widely without personal, local, or sectional misunderstanding." What Mr. Wells says of political processes is equally true of commercial and social processes and all manifestation of mass activity. Okay, this is what all politics is. This is what cults are. This is how a group of people control. This is how a group of small people control a larger group of people. Okay, let me make sure I'm good. Okay, what they do is they compartmentalize. Okay, and okay, but it's all to give us the choice. It's all to comfort us. It's all to prevent us from searching for truth inside of ourselves. And that's why you see so many fake, co-opted, controlled groups out there. It's all to harvest your energy, to get you to prevent from searching from within. Okay, to prevent you from actually going out and just seeking source material and information on your own. You always have to continually get it filtered through some guru teacher or something like that. Okay, but so when the Constitution was adopted, the unit of organization was the village community, which produced the greater part of its own necessary commodities and generated its group ideas and opinions by personal contact and discussion directly among its citizens. Today, because ideas can be instantaneously transmitted any distance to any number of people, this geographical integration has been supplemented by many other kinds of grouping. Again, so that persons, because person is a legal term, having the same ideas and interests may be associated and regimented for common action, even when they live thousands of miles apart. It's extremely difficult to realize how many and diverse are these cleavages in our society. They may be social, political, and economic, racial, religious, or ethical, with hundreds of subdivisions of each. In the World Almanac, for example, the following groups are listed under the A's: the League to Abolish Capital Punishment, Association to Abolish War, American Institute of Accountants, Actors Equity Association, Actuarial Association of America, the International Advertising Association, the American Aeronautic Association, Albany Institute of History and Art, Amen Corn American Institute, or Amen Corner, so the Amen Corner, the American Academy in Rome, the American Antiquarian Society, the League for American Citizenship, American Federation of Labor, the Amoric Rosicrucian Order, the Andrian Club, the American Irish Historical Association, Anti-Cigarette League, Anti-Profanity League, Archaeological Association of America, the National Archery Association, the Arion Singing Society, the American Astronomical Association. And guys, notice all these associations and clubs are incorporated. Okay? Ashire Breeders Association, Aztec Club of 1847. There are many more under the A section of this very limited list. The American Newspaper Annual and Directory for 1828 lists 22,128 periodical publications in America. I selected at random the N's published in Chicago. They are the Narod, which is the Bohemian daily newspaper, the Narad Polski, the Polish monthly, the Nard, which is the pharmaceutical paper, the National Corporation Reporter, the National Culinary Progress for hotel chefs, National Dog Journal, National Drug Clerk. And guys, notice all these are corporations, and all these are part of the mass corporation that is the U.S. government. And it's through these institutions, okay, that the social engineering takes place. Okay? And the Pope's power structure infiltrates all these institutions. Okay? National Dog Journal, National Drug Clerk, National Engineer, National Grocer, National Hotel Reporter, National Income Tax Magazine, National Jeweler, National Journal of Chiropractic, National Livestock Producer, National Miller, National Nut News, National Poultry, Butter and Eggs Bulletin, National Provisioner for Meat Packers, National Real Estate Journal, National Realtor, Retail Clother. This book Propaganda by Bernays was published in 1928. National Retail Lumber Dealer, National Safety News, National Spiritualist, National Underwriter, The Nation's Health, the Najuens, the Lithuania daily newspaper, the New Comer, the Republican Weekly for Italians, the Daily News, the New World, the Catholic Weekly, the North American Banker, and the North American Veterinarian. Circulation of some of these publications is astonishing. The National Livestock Producer has a sworn circulation of 155,978. The National Engineer of 20,328. Okay. The New World, an estimated circulation of 67,000. The greater number of these periodicals listed, chosen at random from among 22,128, have a circulation in excess of 10,000. Diversity of these publications is evident at a glance, yet they can only faintly suggest the multitude of cleavages which exist in our society, and along which flow information and opinion carrying authority to the individual groups. There are the conventions scheduled for the Cleveland, Ohio in a single recent issue of World Convention dates, a fraction of the 5,500 conventions and rallies scheduled. And guys, this is true. When you actually think about it, think about how many nonsense bullshit conventions are set up every year, everywhere. Okay? You got the Employing Photo Engravers Association of America, the Outdoor Writers Association, the Knights of St. John, the Walther League, the National, that Knights of St. John is a Catholic chivalry order. The National Knighted Outwear Association, the Knights of St. Joseph, Catholic, the Royal Order of the Sphinx, sounds Catholic, the Mortgage Bankers Association, the International Association of Public Employment Officials, the Kiwanis Clubs of Ohio, the American Photo Engravers Association, the Cleveland Auto Manufacturers Show, American Society of Heating and Ventilating Engineers. Other conventions to be held in 1928 were those of the Association of Limb Manufacturers Associations, the National Circus Fans Associations of America, the American Naturopathic Association, the American Trap Shooting Association, the Texas Folklore Association, the Hotel Greeters, the Box Beaters Association, the Insecticide and Disinfectant Association, the National Association of Egg and Egg Case Filler Manufacturers, the American Bottles of Carbonated Beverages, and the National Pickle Packers Association, not to mention the Terrapin Derby, most of them which banquets and orations attached. All these thousands of formal organizations and institutions could be listed. No complete list has ever been made. They would still represent but a part of those existing less formally but leading vigorous lives. Ideas are sifted and opinions stereotyped in the neighborhood bridge club. Leaders assert their authority through community drives and amateur theatricals. Thousands of women may unconsciously belong to a sorority which follows the fashion set by a single society leader. Life satirically, I think satirically expresses this idea in the reply which it represents an American as giving to the Britisher who praises his country for having no upper or lower classes or cats. You get the point there. So you see, it's right there in plain sight, guys. Like Bernays, like he highlights the kind of the ridiculousness of having all of these organizations and institutions in the government. Okay, and I'm just gonna highlight it one more time. Okay, you see here it says it's not usually realized how necessary these invisible governors are to the orderly functioning of group life. Okay, just put in invis. And you see here, those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government. You see here, and this is right how he starts off the book. The conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Okay, so I just want to point that out. Edward Bernays, who was involved with the CIA and tons of corporations and like General Electric. He also worked for Knight of Malta, John J. Raskob. So to me, like given what he wrote and the reality of how the Jesuit control system was played out, Bernays is telling you here how the power structure works. Okay, and undoubtedly he works he's part of the control system. He's the nephew of Sigmund Freud as well. Yeah, that's all for this one. YouTube, peace and love, and namnas.